went against that. Now, when you tell me that it's not about race, when I pull up a LA Times article that calls them the dirty debutantes and that they're the villains of women's college basketball, but then UCLA is America's team and it's a predominantly white team, is that not about race? What makes them the quote unquote dirty debutantes? Even that term dirty has to deal with blackness. Blackness, if you look it up in the dictionary, deals with filth, being evil, that's dirty. So we already know what you're trying to say. And this has always been done in the media where you look at people like Jack Johnson or Muhammad Ali. They've always attacked black athletes. Serena, when they drew a whole caricature of her as a monkey. Race has always played a role. We can look at LeBron, Vanity Fair cover, where he's basically being compared to King Kong. But what the problem is that if you don't understand the message and if you aren't really tapped in, you're just going to think it's all regular, it's all normal. And they bank on you being ignorant and not understanding it's always about race. They throw the rock and hide their hand. And it happens every single time. Angel Reese is one of the most prolific athletes to ever come out of women's college basketball. Put the game on the map. She's just as important as Caitlin Clark. Just the same way Bird was just as important as Magic and vice versa. You needed both of them. But to go to the full extent of calling them dirty debutantes and having an entire article making them out to be villains, Emmanuel Acho, his comments especially, and I think Emmanuel Acho, I'm gonna try to find his comments, but Acho, my quarrel with Emmanuel Acho, and I think what a lot of people don't talk about is Emmanuel Acho doesn't share the same experience as Black Americans. So when you're talking about somebody from Nigerian descent who's first generation in America, he's not gonna understand the entire importance of staying on code. What do you mean about staying on code? He doesn't understand who his enemy is. He thinks that white America is his friend because he's been taught that. 9 times out of 10 in his house, he's been taught that African Americans are lazy, African Americans are problematic, and we aren't where we're supposed to be because we don't work hard enough. And this goes back to that earlier conversation about Beyonce, Cowboy Carter. All of this all connects. And ironically, he's from Texas. So think about how crazy that is, where you talk about things like Juneteenth, you talk about things like the Cowboys, which are all black origins, not understanding that we created all of this. But Acho is thinking if I come inside FS1 and I'm a good boy and I show white corporate America I can be trusted and that I'm safe, I'm going to make this bag. We got to look at the receipts. LSU Iowa has exposed so many people and so many things. Good people, man. What's up? What's good? We are back with another edition of Chillin with Caleb, man. This past week has been a very eventful week, man. Like what I promised you guys, we'll be very consistent in coming back with Chillin with Caleb, talking about current topics, current events, and giving a little 2 cents on how we feel about everything. But this past week, man, especially Beyonce knows Carter, man, dropped Cowboy Carter. And I felt like it was just a phenomenal album. It was amazing seeing everything that she's done and brought so much attention to Black cowboy and Black cowgirl culture here in America. And I think that what sparked so much debate was, oh, we have the American flag here, and should she even take pride in this? And I think it's a very poignant conversation when it comes to Black Americans, right? And sometimes whether it's Black Americans between a person that's from African descent that's not from North America per se, and especially the United States, and that Southern heritage. And I think that sometimes we can have this debate of, is that somewhat trying to attach ourselves to white culture? And me personally, from seeing people have those debates, whether it was on the Roland Martin show, I've seen where Tariq Nasheed, where he spoke about it. And I've seen where Dr. Greg Carr is, talking about the Pan-African flag. But 2 days ago, I had the great opportunity to interview A. Cynthia Villery, who was the first Black female rodeo announcer. And she currently works for and works at the Bill Pickett Invitational Rodeo. And seeing what she's done for over 40 years, I made sure that we at least got a perspective from somebody that's actually boots on the ground. So Beyonce, from seeing what she's done and what she's exposed, something, man, it just struck me when I saw Ms. Villery on Roland Martin's show, like, hey, we need to talk to somebody that's like directly tapped in on the soil with this subject matter. And before even talking to her, my own sentiment, it was this. When we see our brothers and sisters from Africa, whether it's Ghana, or when we see our brothers and sisters from the Caribbean, whether it's Haiti, Dominican Republic, any country, whether we see our brothers and sisters from Brazil, people don't mind showing those flags. It can be a complicated history. It can be things that's not right with their own government. But at the end of the day, that is a representative somewhat of where they're from. And I think for black people here in America, sometimes we get detached from us thinking that we don't have a culture. We get this misnomer of thinking that we don't know where we come from. But if you think about it, man, if we study our history properly too, A, most of our people were already indigenous to this land. And B, we're talking about 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 generations almost of people that's been here, of our people in the South, in the Americas especially. And knowing what we've gone through to even be here still is an accomplishment within itself. Knowing that we've built this whole enterprise that people see. Everything that you see around us, whether it's the layout of Washington, D.C., that's Benjamin Banneker, whether you see our inventions from the blood banks to the toilets to the street lights to the GPS, to so many other things, the internet, like it just keeps going on and on and on. Everything that you see around yourself, agriculture, when it comes to George Washington Carver, McCoy, when people talk about I want the real deal McCoy, that comes from an actual black man. So everything that we did in the railroad system, the cotton industry, technology, in NASA, our DNA, our blueprint is in this country. Now, we can say, hey, we want to get out of this country, or this country has nothing for us. But my question towards any person who tries to pose that is, our ancestors, when they didn't have an option, they made the most out of every opportunity that they had here. And I think that we are more dangerous as a people if we have people that's everywhere. So I think we are just as important of staying here, just as important it is for our brothers in Ghana to be in Ghana, or our brothers in Africa to be in Africa, our brothers in the Caribbean. We have to be everywhere so then we can build that total international network. If we are all in one place, I think that could be a very dangerous thing, and history can repeat itself as well. But I think if we are spread out and if we do take pride, especially our brothers and sisters here in America, it's okay to take pride in being American. And when I say that, I'm not saying in a sense of when people think of American, when people think of cowboy, mistakenly, we think of white people, but not knowing we are the ones that actually keeps this thing going. And when I say this thing, I'm not even talking about this American enterprise. I'm talking about every single time that you see me, I see you. I give you that head nod. We are implemented on this soil. We keep this thing going. We keep ourselves going. We keep our own economics, our own systems going. And for us just to ignore that, for us to ignore the Black Wall Streets, Auburn Avenues, all the successful entrepreneurial things that we did on this landmass and just say, hey, I'm going to leave it. I think that is a slap in the face to our entire ancestry of people who actually thugged it out and made something beautiful happen. And I think it's up to us to continue that legacy. So I think from what Beyonce has created is something that's sparked conversation, so we can start doing research on the people such as Gus Cannon, who helped start country music, or the banjo and its West African roots. We think of cowboys, especially we think about the Dallas Cowboys, old Westerns and the movies and stuff, and not understanding that cowboy was just a crazy derogatory term towards black people, towards black men, towards black women. But if we don't understand that this was originally a derogatory term, and not knowing that, dang, they were actually talking about us. And when I think about cowboy, it's actually about us. Miss Villery, man, she broke down in that interview, which should be dropping soon. You might actually see this after seeing Chillin With Caleb, trying to post this on Friday night, April 5th. But 1 out of 4 cowboys were black. You're talking about 25%, especially back then. But if we don't understand this history, if we don't know this history, certain things like being country, right, that has a negative misnomer, especially amongst black people. Oh, y'all boys acting so country, or she dressed country. But not knowing, if you live in LA, if you live in Chicago, Philly, New York, Detroit, you got roots in the South. All of us come from the country, especially if you're from Chicago. 9 times out of 10, your people came from Mississippi, LA, Louisiana, maybe, Arkansas, Georgia, Alabama, New York, probably got roots in South Carolina, Gullah Geechee roots, right? So all of us come from rural places, from the country. And I think that it's very important for us to understand that connectivity, if you will, from the country black folk to the city black folk. You need both people, the same way that you need people, the FBAs here in America, connecting to the our African brothers and sisters or our Caribbean brothers and sisters. We have to build that type of network. And I think that what Beyonce has done, it's also exposed this uncomfortability of people saying, damn, okay, so black people do have a culture. And shout out, man, to Zay and Paradigms and Perspectives, because, bro, seeing them talk about that, I love seeing that because I think that people don't talk about that enough, about black Americans do have culture. And we get so mistaken on thinking that it's just music and sports entertainment, but we don't understand. Think about everything just ingenuity wise that we've created in this country. Let's just even talk about cultivation when it comes to cotton, when it comes to rice. People think that our enslaved ancestors were so stupid, but how can you be so stupid? But yet everything that they built it with their hands. Older people, especially our great great grandparents, built their homes with their bare hands and it lasted for decades. Some of them still till this day. That's knowing architecture. When it comes to cultivating, whether it was the rice, whether it was the cotton, whether it was the sugar, so many other things. You don't know how to do that if you aren't intelligent. But what the problem is, if you put me in a foreign landmass or if you put me in a foreign system, of course, I might not know how to say this or write this. But when it comes to actually doing that job, who did they hire? It was the people that actually had the smarts. And that's why they didn't want for us to read. Because if we did read, imagine pairing that with already knowing what to do when it came to everything else, when it came to warfare, when it came to building, when it came to getting close together as a people. But we always have to stay connected, man. And we can't think that one side is better than the other. But what we do have to start acknowledging is Black American culture. And Cowboy Carter, to me, exposed that. Like, yo, we got some sauce over here too. And rodeo culture specifically is a very big thing. And I advise people to research Bill Pickett, the first cowboy who was a black man who started bulldogging, which was a whole nother technique, which came to wrestling the cattle, all of those things that they still do today was started by a black man. So when we think about rodeos sometimes, especially if we're like in metropolitan areas, we aren't thinking that, dang, we actually started that. And see, what happens is once you start understanding that your people started something, then you start building a whole different type of connection towards that thing. But white people have to then teach you, y'all have nothing to do with sports like hockey, which isn't true, that we helped start. Nothing to do with golf, nothing to do with rodeo and cowboy culture. Because then if I tell you that, you won't start doing the research. Country music too. Then you won't start thinking, okay, we started that. So then let me start getting involved in this field. But instead, nah, stay focused on sports. I'm not going to tell you about Benjamin Banneker and that he laid out Washington, D.C. from a whole photographic memory, man. From a French architect taking all the designs with him because he got pissed off, and then Benjamin Banneker memorizing the entire blueprint and laid it out. And it's so detailed. Then you would start thinking, okay, I could be an architect. I don't have to be just a football player or just a basketball player, an actor. But we have to acknowledge when you come to America, our African brothers and sisters, the people from the Caribbean, this wouldn't even be open to you if our ancestors didn't shed their blood to even create that overall safe space for you. So I think that we have to have a level of respect towards each other and understand that the same way that you have a culture, we do too. Whether it's our food, whether it's our music, how we talk to each other. I saw something too, man, and Dr. Greg Carr, I strongly advise everybody that's tapped in to watch In Class with Carr. That's one of my favorite podcasts. Dr. Greg Carr has this term called governance. So governance refers to us as a people having our own community and our own understanding and our own connectivity, right? So an example of this is recently Kev on Stage posted, Black people, what is this plate for? And it was the typical Southern funeral plate. It had the nasty potato salad that they get, the hard bread, the chicken, and the watery green beans. And the fact that I went in those comments and I saw everybody knew what it was who was from the South, that's governance. So you don't have a culture if I can post something and you know exactly what I'm saying without me saying anything. You can't say that we don't have a culture when I see a brother who looks like me and we don't even know each other and I give him a simple head nod and he head nods back. That's culture. You can't say that we don't have a culture, but then you go to our HBCUs, right? And you tap in, whether it's with the music, whether it's with the dancing, understanding, learning, Kwame Nkrumah learned at a HBCU, becomes an African president. So we have always had that connectivity, if you will. But what happens is if we are ignorant to understanding that we all have something to provide, we are all gonna lose the game. You're no better than me because you can say that I know where I'm from. Well, actually, I know where I'm from too. And see, it makes people uncomfortable if I say I'm from Texas or if I say I'm from Georgia. But it's the same way that a brother can say I'm from Ghana, I'm from Nigeria. Once my people have been here for 500-600 years, I can't just ignore that I'm not from America too, that I'm not from the soil. I can't just ignore that my people have indigenous roots as well. I just can't ignore it if I know that my people have Choctaw, Cherokee, all these other things as well. And that's not me ignoring the African side, that exists too. But we have created a whole different group of people here in America as well. And Miss Villery, what she showed me was those rodeos exemplify that to the umpteenth degree. They walk around with the American flag at the start of the event, and then they bring out the Pan-African flag. And that right there to me personifies Black America. Yes, we have a connection to this land. And us showing that flag isn't us saying that we love America. It's just us acknowledging where we're from and what we've done to create what we have in the world around us and what we can continue to do. Because to me, amongst that same argument, right, would you call your great-great-grandfather a coon because he fought in World War I or because he fought in World War II or in Vietnam or in the American Revolution or in the Civil War? No, they had an idea of making tomorrow a better place, not for all Americans, but for especially their people, specifically their people. And to me, there's no sin in that because that's our goal every single day. The same way if you still go up and punch that clock every day, somebody, they can call you cool. Oh, you making the white man money. No. I'm providing for my family. So that's why context is so important. And I think Beyonce made sure to not show the stars on that flag, just to leave it open for interpretation, to then spark that debate. I know for a fact that she knew what she was doing. And that's why it's important for us to understand that art and music is supposed to spark conversation. It's supposed to spark ideas, debates. Because if we aren't debating about art, then is it really art to begin with? Her song 16 Carriages, amazing. I love Tyrant, 27 songs, and just seeing her take over those country music charts is amazing. And I encourage people to look up Gus Cannon and look up all the Black women who help implement country music or rock and roll. The banjo, like, just think about how crazy that is. The guitar comes from Africa, the whole concept, the Moors, the banjo. But we think of a guitar and a white man playing it, not understanding that our sauce is all over that. But that is a whole microcosm of America. We think that white people started this or that white people are so smart and that white supremacy takes over us and that we aren't good enough, not knowing that you are the DNA. And once you understand that, man, it takes you to a whole nother level of understanding, of confidence, and overall just knowing that if you can start something that they love, why not start something that you can love as well? And shoot, get back in that field too. Don't think that we're just excluded because country music is just a white field. Man, Beyonce is showing you, man, F that. I'm going to go in, push some people around. And that's what Black people, what we have to understand. We have to insulate ourselves, build for self, and we have to continuously build a better tomorrow. But take pride. All my people, all my Black people that's from the South, from the West Coast, East Coast, from America, take pride. If you're from Detroit, bro, think about Detroit. When it comes to Black entrepreneurship, when it comes to ingenuity, when it comes to just being dope and fly. What up, though? Shout out to Detroit. Chicago, same way, bro. Y'all got things popping. LA, Atlanta, if you're from South Carolina, if you're from the middle of nowhere in Mississippi, take pride in being from the country. If you're from Memphis. But country Black folk, I know, man, people have always tried to make it seem like it's such a bad thing, but it's not. Y'all are the DNA. All the people from New York, where'd y'all go during the summertime growing up? You went back home to the South, right? Because it's something about being in touch with those roots that humbles you. I went through that as a kid. I used to go back to my grandparents in the country, and it's nothing like that because it shows you, okay, this is where we come from, and I got to take us even further. So tap in, man, with that, understand those things, and listen to yourself, thrive. But before we hop to the next segment, in closing on this one, understand that Black American culture is the culture. And that's not me saying that Black Americans, that we're better than everybody else. No, but if you go anywhere else, man, I remember I went to Cuba, y'all, when I studied abroad. And I kid you not, this Cuban man walked up to me, Afro-Cuban, looked just like me and you, and said, bro, are you from Atlanta? Because, he saw we were from Georgia State. My man knew about Gabi Road, bro. In Cuba, I kid you not, in Havana, Cuba, my man knew about Gabi Road, and he was talking about Old National. I said, how do you know about Old National? He said, man, y'all make the world go round. He said, Black Americans make the world go round, and that we are studying you. Every other culture is studying us. And we have to understand that we are on the world stage. So we have to be very mindful about what we do, what we say, and how we lead. And I'm not saying that we are the Messiah. No, but what I am saying is that the facts are the facts. And we can't move further as a people if we're just focused on all the small things about ego being the main, me in the main, you know what, the head one in charge. No, that's not important. What's the most important thing is how can we collaborate as a people? And then not only that, how can we connect with our brothers in the Caribbean, in Africa, in Asia? Black people are everywhere. Polynesia. How can we connect with our people everywhere? Latin America. Because once that happens and we build that entire connectivity everywhere, nobody can stop us, because then we're going to be our own nation, but spread around everywhere. Marcus Garvey, he was trying to show us this. Malcolm X was trying to show us this. Nation of Islam was trying to show us this. Martin Luther King to a certain extent. But we got to put this into action, because if we stay separated, and if we talking about Black Americans don't have a culture, and if we're not on the same page, and if we look down on each other, and even inside when we say, hey, rodeo is white, this is white, country music is white, the more we just exclude ourselves and eliminate what we can provide to each other, we'll have nothing left. So you need people on every single level. We need our Black folks in the country holding down the rodeos like Miss A. Cynthia Villery. We need the Bill Pickett's of the world. We need to understand cowboy culture, our Bass Reeves, Bill Pickett, Stagecoach Mary. Study these people, see what they had to do, what they had to go through, how they innovated and changed the game. And also understand that we need our Black folks in the city too. But those same people in the city need to bring back that information to the country. The same Black folks in the country need to bring back that information when it comes to agriculture, our history, all of those things. Because if we don't know where we came from, you will never understand where we are headed. So understand those things, do our research, our history. Cowboy Carter, listen to that album, study it. Beyonce, man, shout out to the Queen Bee. That's his girl, man, amazing album. And our Black artists, man, in closing too, challenge the norm. If you aren't trying new things, new genres, and then also trying to educate in those things, you're doing your people and your audience a major disservice. We're supposed to learn from the times. Marvin Gaye, he even showed us that. If your music isn't speaking to the times, it's not speaking at all. But we about to hop on to the next segment, man. I appreciate y'all tapping in. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We about to talk about Puff next, man. So stay tuned. No Diddy. Man, again, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. This segment, man, No Diddy. It's crazy, man. With Puff, it's a wild boy, bro. That's a wild boy, man. Puff, bro, recently seeing the homes being raided in LA, Miami was a very scary thing, because it's just seeing how someone could be at the top of the mountain and then so swiftly being erased. And we've seen this happen a lot of times, whether it was with Bill Cosby, R. Kelly. And what I hope and pray is that none of these allegations are true. But it's looking like there's some type of like validity to it, because what Cassie had in those documents isn't as far-fetched as what we thought it was, because people always rumored about Puff. People always rumored about the parties and what was going on at the parties, and it was kind of lit. It was crazy. And Puff has always been kind of doing suspect things. Like when he called me daddy, it was just like, it was kind of weird. But I think that what people have to understand is, from seeing what happened with Puff, is a very unfortunate thing of people waiting to see you fall. Now, I'm not saying disregard everything with the sexual assault allegations, with the sex trafficking, with the drug mule, with the kid, with the white boy who was from Syracuse who used to hoop and was pushing cocaine. I'm not saying disregard any of those things. But what I am saying is, look at how sometimes people rejoice in us sometimes as a community when some of our top dogs fall. I'm not saying Puff was perfect. You know, you can look up Bad Boy and when people talk about the contracts and stuff, but when people even bring that up, I kind of try to say, hey, Jimmy Iovine, y'all really don't have that same energy towards him. Clive Davis, I mean, we seen Whitney literally deteriorate in front of our eyes. You don't think Clive Davis knew that when she was getting hooked on drugs? Did he really try to stop it? Nah. Hey, he's making his money. That's a cash cow. But with Puff, I want for black people, and especially young black men, to truly understand that's why you got to have a tight team and a tight circle around you. You can't always have yes men around you. You can't always have people that's down with the get down, trying to have fun with you. Rashee Rice, we seen that with him on the Chiefs. You get in a car accident, walk away from the scene. You got too many yes men around you. Because there's no way, after seeing Henry Ruggs, first round draft pick in Vegas, have to spend time in prison now because of the same exact situation. So if we aren't studying what happened before to other black men, other individuals, how are you supposed to pivot properly? How are you even supposed to move right? And I think with Puff, the most poignant thing is this would have never happened, in my opinion, if he was married. We get so worried about smashing this one, being with this girl, that girl. Not understanding, man, once you start getting older, once you start stacking up on those women, guess what can start getting created? Stories about you, allegations about you. She might be bitter, this girl who you left. So now, oh, I can come out with a whole sexual assault allegation. And I'm not saying that Cassie did that, no. But what I am saying is the more you move around, not being held down by a woman, the more you open yourself up to crazy stories and crazy things happening to you. This man got a $30 million lesson. Fellas, just think about that for a second. My man got a $30 million bill off of the Cassie situation. And if he could go back in time, he would never make that same mistake again. And I remember my brother, he told me this, and I think this was at church. We were in a men's group, but I remember, man, Zach, he had told me this as a kid. I was probably like 6 or 7, but he said, for every downfall of a man, a woman is involved. And that's not blaming the woman. No. What that saying is saying to us and to other men, especially black men, got to be very careful about the company that you keep. Because if you aren't, you will be taken advantage of. If you aren't, you will be paying child support. You will be paying lawyer fees, sexual assault allegations thrown on you. And see, with Puff, I'm going to be real. He's never going to recover from this. A lot of people think that he is, but once you get that sexual assault allegation on your jacket, it's a wrap. Because even if it's not true, the lie is more entertaining than the truth itself. So once you've been associated with sexual deviancy and being a creep, that stays on your jacket. You can post, and even if in court they had all the evidence that went the other way, you're still associated with that sexual allegation. You still had to lose investments and money in Ciroc. You still had to sell all your shares in Revolt that you built. And I think that one right there was major. We're talking about black media. Revolt finally became something huge, iconic. And now everything that you spent, everything that you put into it, you now got to split away from that. And now that's subject to be owned by somebody else. Even potentially, which I don't think will happen, but potentially could happen, is what if a white-owned company buys Revolt? Now it's not black-owned media anymore. Now that entire thing shifts. And now Puff really can't even be seen in the public eye as much anymore. And this is all off of how you move. And young black men, bro, understand this. You don't want to spend your entirety of your life building something just for it to crumble in a couple of months. Imagine how traumatic that feels. You spent 35 plus years building something from the ground up to become a billionaire almost. To now you got $30 million bills. You got lawyer fees, retainers now that have to be paid, civil suits that have to be paid. All these things that now have to be paid off of the company that you keep. And everyone is trying to judge them. Minister Farrakhan, man, he even said this: be very careful about how you laugh and joke about somebody when they're down, because that could easily be you as well. So, okay, crack your jokes. We saying no Diddy right now, but understand this. If we're not careful, you can be in those same type of shoes. And I'm not saying that you can end up with sexual assault allegations. No, but you could end up in a bad situation. And then in that situation, the last thing that you want to see is when you're scrolling on social media, everybody making fun of you. And Puff right now, he could be on suicide watch for all we know. The guy that went from hosting all the parties, having a great time, in the blink of an eye, is now having to shift his entire lifestyle. In the blink of an eye, has to change how he moves. And what's so crazy is how he has to move right now. What if he was moving like that the entire time? Then he wouldn't even be in this position to begin with. Hove, man, that's why I see why he doesn't have an Instagram. I see why he doesn't really hang out with people, like, because I get it. Because, bro, the more that you're around people, the more you open yourself up to crazy things happening. Beyonce, the same thing. Like, I get it. Bron, I see why his team is so insulated. Because, man, it's a lot of weirdos out here. It's a lot. And Zay's podcast, bro, Paradigms and Perspectives, bro, they went in on it earlier this week about it's a lot of weirdos out here, man. And you just got to be, like, very careful about it, because if you aren't, you will subjugate yourself to bad things happening to you. And with Puff, think about how many people were at those parties. How many people do you see at those parties are defending his name right now? They not going to mind being at the parties, having sex with all the girls, drinking, getting lit, taking pictures with you and saying, I'm at Puffy's house. But when everything starts going left, it's going to be crickets, bro. It's going to be crickets. So understand, man, that you got to keep that team, that circle very, very tight. And if you're not, if you try to keep this open door policy, man, the main person that's hosting all the parties, the main person that's getting lit all the time, that same person is going to be the most lonely person when everything goes left. And I think for Puff, that's a very tragic thing for him. And I think it's very just, something that he has to just adjust himself to, of seeing how, dang, I was that nigga. And now all of a sudden, nobody's trying to F with me no more. But that's how the game goes, man. It's the same game, different players. It's going to be a new Puff in 5 years. It's going to be the new hot exec who's going to be hosting all the parties, getting lit, having fun, and everybody's going to be pulling up to his crib. So things come in phases. Some people, they can say it's karma for how he did as artist or how he did Kim Porter. That's all for conjecture. Of course, we can say that. But you never want to judge somebody at their lowest. And I just think right now with Puff, it's very poignant, man, that we just got to learn and see what went wrong. And I think that that's why it's important, man. Again, keep that circle tight. Move correctly as men. Don't put yourself in compromising situations with women, because at the end of the day, the woman will always be believed, because that's just how society works. And if you don't understand that, you will have to learn that the hard way. And with Puff, Cassie, of course, she could have been lying, sure. But at the end of the day, that association with that sexual assault allegation, bro, that puts some smut on your name. And that's very hard to just try to recover from, because once you're associated with that type of thing, that's it. Brand deals, all this stuff is out the window. And if you think about it, everything that Puff does, it's about the brand. It's about the name. It's about being sexy. It's about the bottles. It's about the media. Now, all these things, it's not working in your favor. Imagine now Puff, that's like Bill Cosby having a Ciroc line. They'll be cracking jokes like, bro, that's not going to go together. You already got sexual assault tied to you. They're going to talk about Quaaludes trying to get popped in the drinks and things like that. So once that name is smut, man, it's a wrap. And, bro, that's why it says, man, in the Bible, a good name is worth way more than great riches. And that's a fact, because your name, if people like you, if people rock with you, if you have a great reputation, solid foundation, people always going to rock with you. But once that thing is faulty, it's going to get real quiet, man. So Puff, his next moves, the world will see. I've seen everybody talking about it, going in on it, but I'm like, what people aren't talking about is, okay, what can we learn from this situation? Just because he's a billionaire doesn't mean that there's no relatability to this type of thing. No, it's a lot of relatability, because even if he's at that type of status, how quickly can you fall? And you may think I'm just a regular dude or I'm a regular woman, but no, it's people who look up to you too. So how do you make sure that you don't fall from where you are right now? How do you make sure that you keep elevating properly and not bringing other people down around you? And also be very careful about how you treat people. The same people who you try to crap on all the time, they can come back on you. and get a $30 million bill. So Puff, man, I already know he thought things was sweet. He was with Young Miami, Carisha, they chilling in Miami, just vibing. And I know Cassie was probably just doing the Birdman hands the whole time. Like, bro, you think this was over? Nah, bro. Because, man, what they say is nothing like a woman scoring, man. They are smarter than us, bro. And she played that thing out, and she got her money's worth for all the time, the abuse, mental abuse that she probably went through. And she got all that money back and some. So understand that, bro. Like, all the work that you put in, that could be filling up somebody else's pockets. And now Cassie, she with her new boyfriend, new husband, I think. Shoot, they could be living off that 30 M's that you just paid. So just be very careful about how you move, man, because that can interrupt your entire trajectory of your life, of your business, everything. And it's never worth doing all that craziness just for one night of fun. And that's all that it was. One night of fun kept building on each other that then turned into multiple months of just treachery now. It's terrible for him. Everything that he's going through right now is off of not moving in the right way. So young black men, be very careful about how you move, who you surround yourself with, and try to find you somebody solid at a very young age. Because it's harder the older that you get. It's harder the more successful that you become. Because then you don't know this person's intentions. Do they really want to be with me? But when you start with them young, man, you start going through things together. They start seeing how you grow and develop. They start contributing to how you grow and develop. And then that bond becomes stronger. Find you a Savannah James. What the girls say on Twitter, that's a good man, Savannah. Find you a Savannah James, bro. Lock in with somebody early and young. All your favorite billionaires, yeah, bro, they might be wilding, but they were married. They found somebody at a young age and they built with them. So find that partner. At Diddy, have your fun. You can say no Diddy, crack your jokes, have your memes, but always ask yourself, revert back to what can I learn from this situation. So we about to hop to the next segment after this in a little bit. Stay tuned. Angel Reese coming up next. Y'all, we are back. One of our last few segments. Angel Reese, man. Earlier this week, LSU Iowa, highly anticipated basketball game. The women's game is just phenomenal right now. I grew up a diehard USC Trojans fan, so man, seeing Juju Watkins doing everything that she's doing as well, it's like seeing love in basketball. And man, I had been saying that all year, and then now seeing on Twitter that people are sharing that same sentiment is hilarious to me. But the LSU Iowa game is a real microcosm of what America is. It's bird magic personified all over again. Where I get annoyed in this conversation is when people try to act ignorant or oblivious to why this is such a polarizing game. People are so afraid to sometimes mention race. And when people say, why is it all about race? We live in America. It's always going to be about race, even if it's in your subconscious mind. A white person is going to gravitate more towards Caitlyn because they see themselves in Caitlyn. A black person is going to gravitate more towards Angel because they see themselves in Angel. They share the same struggles with Angel. And from seeing that game where I saw when Angel got hurt, the Iowa fans are smiling, they're cheering a little bit. And I see when Caitlyn is hitting threes and it's not viewed as cocky, she's competitive. But when Angel is viewed as a villain, and some people they'll try to say, well, she's viewed as a villain because she's not focused or because she talks trash. But Caitlyn talks a lot of trash. I see Caitlyn doing the Jordan shrug. I see Caitlyn doing the three. I see Caitlyn doing the John Cena, you can't see me. And I'm not calling Caitlyn a Karen by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not. But what I am saying is last year's instance proved what happens so many times to black people and especially black women when they finally react, they're viewed as crazy, but not understanding the full context of the situation. You had Caitlin Clark talking trash to South Carolina. The previous game, you can't see me. Then she faces Angel in the championship game, and Angel gives her back that same energy. If you dish it, you got to take it. Angel dished all the trash talking throughout the year, and when it was time to take it, she was a great she showed rather great sportswomanship in that moment, sportsmanship of shaking Caitlin's hand, saying great game, go win it. So this whole narrative about Angel cannot be pushed further because she just went against that. Now, when you tell me that it's not about race, when I pull up a LA Times article that calls them the dirty debutantes and that they're the villains of women's college basketball, but then UCLA is America's team and it's a predominantly white team. Is that not about race? What makes them the quote unquote dirty debutantes? Even that term dirty has to deal with blackness. Blackness, if you look it up in the dictionary, deals with filth, being evil. That's dirty. So we already know what you're trying to say. And this has always been done in the media where you look at people like Jack Johnson or Muhammad Ali. They've always attacked black athletes. Serena, when they drew a whole caricature of her as a monkey. Race has always played a role. We can look at LeBron, Vanity Fair cover, where he's basically being compared to King Kong. But what the problem is that if you don't understand the message and if you aren't really tapped in, you're just going to think it's all regular, it's all normal. And they bank on you being ignorant and not understanding it's always about race. They throw the rock and hide their hand. And it happens every single time. Angel Reese is one of the most prolific athletes to ever come out of women's college basketball. Put the game on the map. She's just as important as Caitlin Clark. Just the same way Bird was just as important as Magic and vice versa. You needed both of them. But to go to the full extent of calling them dirty debutantes and having an entire article making them out to be villains, Emmanuel Acho, his comments especially, and I think Emmanuel Acho, I'm gonna try to find his comments, but Acho, my quarrel with Emmanuel Acho, and I think what a lot of people don't talk about is Emmanuel Acho doesn't share the same experience as Black Americans. So when you're talking about somebody from Nigerian descent who's first generation in America, he's not gonna understand the entire importance of staying on code. What do you mean about staying on code? He doesn't understand who his enemy is. He thinks that white America is his friend because he's been taught that. 9 times out of 10 in his house, he's been taught that African Americans are lazy, African Americans are problematic, and we aren't where we're supposed to be because we don't work hard enough. And this goes back to that earlier conversation about Beyonce, Cowboy Carter. All of this all connects. And ironically, he's from Texas. So think about how crazy that is, where you talk about things like Juneteenth, you talk about things like the Cowboys, which are all black origins, not understanding that we created all of this. But Acho is thinking if I come inside FS1 and I'm a good boy and I show white corporate America I can be trusted and that I'm safe, I'm going to make this bag. We got to look at the receipts. LSU Iowa has exposed so many people and so many things. The owner of Barstool Sports last year, when he was talking about Angel, derogatory terms towards black people, Gillian Wallow even had to check him. But I'm like, in that moment, that's why ownership is so important. Me personally, in that moment, I don't care how much money you're paying me. If you own this platform and if I'm partnering with you, if you talk about my people in that manner, I'm not doing business with you no more. Cut the contract, cut the deal. We do the same thing with the Jewish community. Once you say something towards them that they don't like, they don't care how much money y'all got tied in together, I'm out because I got to stay on code. So we need that same energy, especially when it comes towards our black women. So back to Acho. So Acho, before we even talk about his comments, we got to look at a person's character. Acho is the same person that started a podcast series interviewing white police officers talking about bridging the gap. The brother is lost, bro. The moment that we even start with that. But for me, I felt offended because just keeping it a buck with you, your family wasn't even here to even understand our complicated relationship with the police to begin with. I can't fly to Nigeria and talk about Nigerian issues like I'm this authoritative person to even talk about that to begin with. So to see you try to have conversations with white cops and saying that we have to understand them too is very problematic. And Van Lathan actually checked him on this on his podcast. So I'm not tripping. But our problem is we don't call these things out and understand the context behind every situation. So this is the same man that had white cops on trying to reason with them. And honestly, I'm in this current space in my life. Wow, we got Malcolm behind us, we got Nip around us. Like people don't understand black energy and of everybody's not your friend. John Henry Clark said that black Americans have no friends. And that's just a harsh reality. Everybody wants to reap off of our economics, off of our style, off of our ingenuity, but they will not be your ally. So, of us thinking that we can sit down with white people and change their minds after 400 years hasn't already shown you that is truly insane, especially a person who is racist to their core or even prejudiced. And I'm not saying all white people, but I'm saying white people as a social structure. Yes. And I'm not afraid to say that. That is insane to think that by me having you on my podcast, we're going to change the world. By me having you on my podcast, that I can then change your mind and refine you and make you love black people. If you didn't love black people before, you didn't respect them before, and you already have a gun and a badge, it's not going to work. And not only that, Dave Anderson, what he say? We cannot take the root of a thing from the fruit of a thing. And that's a bar because, or the fruit of a thing from the root of the thing, because you have to look at the core of how something started. The police department started as a slave patrol unit. If it started as that, it's never going to be refined to begin with because it's doing what it's supposed to do. The SWAT unit. SWAT is one of my favorite shows. However, I looked up why the SWAT unit was started. It was started to infiltrate and destroy the Black Panther Party. All of these things have racist origins when it comes to the police department. I'm not saying get away with the police department. I'm not saying defund the police, all that other stuff. But what I am saying is that this is the same person that thought that he can change this, but not understanding that you're not even connected to it to begin with. So he doesn't understand the importance of staying on code. Marcellus Wiley, Speak for Yourself, that was his show. If we really look at the history, Acho gets on the show. Less than a year later, Marcellus Wiley is off the show. Marcellus Wiley tried to warn you about Acho. No disrespect to the brother. We just got to bring up receipts. Acho, I can see from his vibes, he tries a little too hard. He tries to fit in. And he does a great job on TV, but I know that he's not on code. And case in point, right here on this article, you can find this on Outkick, and this is everywhere. You can find this on all platforms. Angel Reese complained about being overly sexualized. And Angel Reese, who posed in a bikini for Sports Illustrated and has swimsuit photos all over her social media, seems shocked that she's been quote unquote sexualized by some people. And that's by the media right there. So basically trying to insinuate quote unquote sexualized. And then why would you begin that with she posed in a bikini? So my question is, when all the white women were doing Me Too, did we victim blame and say, why were you in this man's house at 4 in the morning who was married? No, we must protect them, right? We need the same level of protection when it comes towards our black women. And black women have always been hypersexualized. This isn't nothing new. They've always been viewed as sexual objects. That goes right back to the plantation. So all these things aren't foreign things that we've never heard before. We see it in the music industry. I was just scrolling. Why do you think they got Ice Spice always twerking? Sexy Red always twerking, Meg the Stallion, because that's what you are and that's who you're going to be in their eyes towards the white social structure. You're going to make your bread off of sexualizing yourself. So Acho said this: Angel Reese, you can't be the big bad wolf and then kind of cry like Courage the Cowardly Dog. Nobody mourns when the villain catches an L, and Angel Reese yourself proclaimed to be the villain. Shout out to you because you were the second best basketball player on the court against Iowa, and it wasn't even close. So multiple things here, Acho. Last time I checked, before Angel Reese twisted her ankle, she had the game tied up, and they were about to be in the lead, and she was hooping. Let's not act like she didn't twist her ankle. Same way Caitlin was leading her team, Angel was too. Angel was also not getting fed the rock in the volume that Caitlin was. Everybody could see that during the game. They were not intentionally feeding Angel the basketball. After already being hurt, Angel gets right back on the court with a bum ankle, still competing. Did we talk about that? Caitlin Clark, of course, as a guard, she's going to be the better player. She touches the ball more. She's pulling up from three. She's going to score more, and she shoots more. But if Acho actually understood basketball, Caitlin Clark has no mid-range game, no middies whatsoever. Hardly goes left. Pulling up threes from anywhere. It looks good while she's making it, but what's going to happen if she misses them? Angel Reese actually gets higher percentage shots, plays better defense, gets blocks and rebounds. LSU had no pick and roll action. Horrible coaching by Kim Mulkey. You have Van Lith guarding Caitlin Clark after she had been cooked by her the previous year at Louisville. But these are the people that's telling you about sports right now, but not breaking things down in its full context. And then saying that she's a villain, like this whole villain thing has got to stop, bro. So she's the villain, but Caitlin isn't. But this is what we do towards black athletes. We have to be humble, meek, and mild. That's why y'all didn't like Ali. Y'all can say y'all love Ali now, but y'all didn't start liking him until he had Parkinson's, until he wasn't the same Ali. Because when he was telling you that he's not going to fight in the Vietnam War and that y'all are his enemy, and when he joined the Nation of Islam, well, you seeing with Malcolm X, the Honorable Minister Farrakhan, Elijah Muhammad, when you start seeing him around these people, oh, he's a problem. Jack Johnson, he wasn't humble. He was knocking white men out in the early 1900s and then sleeping with their women and driving fancy cars. Can you imagine how disrespected that they felt? They weren't humble. Y'all didn't even like Kobe, if we really want to be real. Why? Oh, he's a ball hog. He's selfish. He's all of this. No, he knew how much work he put in. Y'all want us to be humble. Y'all want for us to be grateful just to be in the space, in the room, not understanding that y'all have a room and a whole arena to begin with because of black bodies. If we really just keeping it a buck, y'all love Caitlin Clark so much because she's one of a few. Just really being real. That's why you love Bird, the Great White Hope. That's right, Zay. That's why y'all love them. Y'all love them because of your mediocrity. If we really just gonna have a real conversation. Because for every Caitlin Clark, I can name 5 more Angel Reeses. But what the problem is, once that black person, I would say the great black scare, is a threat to the great white hope, then it's a problem. LSU was a problem. Y'all were worried. But what I can't wait for is potentially if Iowa plays South Carolina. And I want to see Don Staley do that work. And I want to see all the people who have that prejudice in the stands from Iowa with tears in their eyes. Because we have to be 2 times as better, and then we have to be 2 times as better as people as well after beating you. Because if I'm not, I'm viewed as cocky. I'm viewed as ungrateful. But Angel earned everything, and she played her heart out on that floor. And for Acho to go out of his way to say those disparaging comments is not cool. But this isn't his first slip up. During this year, and Cat, he tried to warn us, but man, it's the year of exposure, the year of revelation, and the year of truth. If you aren't towards our goal of understanding, if you have a microphone, if you're on national television, I got to move in a certain way as a black man, as a black woman. I'm not saying don't be objective. I'm not saying don't report the news, but I'm not going to go out of my way to disparage my people, especially when it doesn't make sense and when it's not even necessary. But these people are doing this stuff for clicks and views. These people are doing this stuff for clout. And what we have to do is tear down what they're saying. And I love how people are standing up for Angel because it's sick at this point to say that she's not being sexualized. When have black women not been sexualized? Please explain to me. I'll sit and wait. Because other races, especially white women, they can do things and be more sexual and it's viewed as sexual liberation. As a black woman, oh, she's a hoe. So it's not the same. It's not the same. And then for her to even be called the dirty debutantes, LSU, in college football, the U, Miami, right? What was that game called when they played Notre Dame? The Catholics versus the Convicts. Why is Miami called the Convicts? Who has an arrest record? What do you mean by that? The Convicts. And Catholics is associated with God, right? Christianity, holiness. Who's that? Oh, the white people. Oh, and then all the niggas are the convicts, right? How do you even come up with that name? It's the same way how we have dirty debutantes for LSU and America's team for UCLA. When has UCLA women's basketball even been talked about this year? Their America's team? Last time I checked rather, LSU is selling out arenas. LSU has you tuned in. LSU has Flage. LSU had Angel, Van Lith, Powell. Like they got names, bro. Bringing names. USC, Juju, bringing firepower. Caitlin Clark, even give it to her. But UCLA is America's team now? No. America, white America was rooting for them to beat LSU. The Great White Hope, once again, like what Zay said. So we just have to decode media. That's our biggest thing. Media is a code, and we have to crack that code every single time. And it's always subliminal messaging, whether it's terms and associations like Catholics versus convicts, dirty debutantes. Ask yourself, what do they mean by this? White America speaks in a code in the media, even when you watch the news at 5 o'clock at night when they use things like thug or burglary. Who do you think about? Black people. crack the code, understand what they're trying to say, man. But again, Angel Reese, man, shout out to her. She wasn't even fed the ball like how she was in the first half. You can even see her telling Coach Kim Mulkey, "Give me the rock." Kim Mulkey, terrible when it came to assignments, all of that stuff. Van Lift should have never been guarding her. Flaws they should have been, and you saw that difference in coaching the following game between UConn and USC. Gino, he starts seeing, hey, we down, we're gonna start doing pick and roll, we're gonna start pressing, we're gonna start doubling Juju, we're gonna start tiring her out. That's coaching. So when Acho tries to say the better player, all of that, bro, it's no context. There's no context behind that. And Black America has to understand that people aren't gonna understand our struggle. And if you don't understand our struggle, be very, very careful when you try to speak on it as a Black American, when you're trying to pose as a Black American, rather. So be mindful of that, man. But we appreciate you guys for always tapping in, always showing love, always subscribing, liking, commenting. Man, I appreciate y'all more than you guys know. The best is yet to come. We'll have some more fire content. We have some more interviews on the way, all that good stuff. And two, man, we'll make sure to start doing this more often. So we'll talk about the news topics all throughout the week. So all of us can stay updated, share our own opinions and our thoughts and whatnot, man. So stay tapped in, stay tuned, and we have some very dope content on the way. Blessed be your host, Caleb Smith. Until next time, peace. Appreciate y'all. So we're done. So how many minutes was that?